It's not luck. It's not circumstances. It's not even talent. It's mindset. The way you think shapes the way you act, and the way you act shapes your life. The 1% think differently, and tonight I'm going to show you how. Let's start with a fundamental truth: success leaves clues. The most successful people in the world, the 1%, they're not hiding their secrets. They're living them out loud every single day. All we have to do is pay attention, learn, and most importantly, apply. The first key element of the 1% mindset is this: they take 100% responsibility for their lives. Now, I can already hear some of you thinking, but Jim, what about circumstances beyond our control? And you're right, there are things we can't control. But here's the kicker: the 1% don't focus on what they can't control. They pour all their energy into what they can. Let me tell you a story. I once knew a man named Tom. Tom grew up in poverty, raised by a single mother who worked 3 jobs just to keep food on the table. Now, Tom could have easily said, "This is my lot in life. I was born into poverty, so I'll always be poor." But he didn't. Instead, Tom said, "I may not be able to control where I started, but I can absolutely control where I finish." Tom worked hard in school, took on odd jobs, saved every penny he could. He read books on business and finance while his friends were out partying. Was it easy? Absolutely not. But Tom understood something crucial: he was responsible for his life. Not his circumstances, not his past, not the economy, him. Today, Tom is a successful entrepreneur running a multi-million-dollar company. He employs hundreds of people, many from backgrounds similar to his own. Tom's success wasn't handed to him on a silver platter. He created it through sheer determination and by taking responsibility for his life. This, my friends, is how the 1% think. They don't blame, they don't complain, they don't make excuses. They take responsibility and they take action. Now let's move on to the second key element of the 1% mindset. They have a clear vision and set specific goals. You see, success doesn't happen by accident. It's not something you stumble upon while wandering aimlessly through life. Success is deliberate. It's intentional. And it starts with a vision. The 1% know exactly what they want. They can see it, taste it, feel it. Their vision is so clear, so vivid, that it's almost real to them before it actually exists. And from this vision, they set specific, measurable goals. Let me ask you something. If I were to ask you right now, what do you want out of life? How many of you could give me a clear, specific answer? How many of you have a written list of goals for this year, this month, even this week? The 1% always know the answer to these questions. They don't deal in vague generalities like "I want to be successful" or "I want to be happy." They deal in specifics. "I want to increase my income by 20% this year. I want to read 1 book a week. I want to launch my own business by June 1st. Why is this so important? Because you can't hit a target you can't see. If your goals are vague, your results will be vague. But if your goals are clear and specific, you give your mind something concrete to work towards. Let me share another story with you. I once met a young woman named Sarah at one of my seminars. Sarah came up to me afterwards and said, "Mr. Rohn, I want to be successful, but I just don't know how." I asked her, "Sarah, what does success look like to you?" She looked puzzled for a moment and then said, "Well, I guess I want to have a good job and make good money." I said, "Okay, Sarah, let's get specific. What kind of job? In what industry? How much money exactly?" By when Sarah looked overwhelmed. She had never thought about success in such specific terms before. So we sat down together and started crafting a vision. We talked about her passions, her skills, her dreams. And slowly, a clear picture started to emerge. Sarah realized she wanted to be a marketing executive in the tech industry. She wanted to be earning $150,000 a year within 5 years. She wanted to buy her own home in a specific neighborhood by the time she was 30. Suddenly, Sarah's vague notion of success had turned into a clear, actionable plan. She left that day with a list of specific goals and a timeline to achieve them. 2 years later, Sarah came back to another one of my seminars. She was beaming. She had landed a job at a growing tech startup, had already received 2 promotions, and was well on her way to her income goal. She was even saving for that house she wanted. What changed for Sarah? She developed the mindset of the 1%. She created a clear vision and set specific goals. And that made all the difference. Now let's move on to the third key element of the 1% mindset. They understand the power of continuous learning and self-improvement. The most successful people in the world, the 1%, they're like sponges. They're constantly absorbing new information, new skills, new ideas. They understand that in a rapidly changing world, if you're not growing, you're dying. How many books did you read last year? The average American reads about 4 books a year. Do you know how many books the average CEO reads? 60. That's 1 book a week, plus some extra. Why? Because they understand that knowledge is power. They know that the more they learn, the more they earn. But it's not just about reading books. The 1% are always looking for ways to improve themselves. They attend seminars, they listen to podcasts, they seek out mentors, they invest in themselves. I always say, work harder on yourself than you do on your job. Because if you work hard on your job, you can make a living. But if you work hard on yourself, you can make a fortune. Let me tell you about a man I know named Michael. Michael was a middle manager at a large corporation. He was doing okay, but he felt stuck. He wanted more, but he didn't know how to get it. One day, Michael decided to make a change. He committed to reading 1 book a week on business and personal development. He started attending industry conferences and networking events. He found a mentor who had achieved the level of success he aspired to. At first, it was hard. Michael had to wake up an hour earlier each day to fit in his reading. He had to give up some of his TV time in the evenings to work on developing new skills. But he persisted. Within a year, Michael had read 52 books. He had learned new strategies that he implemented in his job, leading to a significant increase in his department's productivity. He had made valuable connections at networking events that led to new opportunities for his company. And the wisdom from his mentor had helped him navigate office politics and position himself for promotion. 2 years after starting his self-improvement journey, Michael was promoted to a senior executive position. His income doubled. But more importantly, Michael felt fulfilled. He was growing, learning, evolving. This is how the 1% think. They don't see learning as something that ends when you finish school. They see it as a lifelong journey. They're always asking, what can I learn today that will make me better tomorrow? Now let's talk about the fourth key element of the 1% mindset. They embrace failure as a stepping stone to success. This might sound counterintuitive. After all, don't successful people avoid failure? Isn't that what makes them successful? Well, not exactly. The 1% understand something that many people don't. Failure is not the opposite of success. It's part of success. Every successful person you admire has failed. Probably many times. The difference is they didn't let failure stop them. They used it as a learning experience, a stepping stone to get closer to their goals. Thomas Edison, one of the greatest inventors in history, famously said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." Can you imagine if Edison had given up after his first failure? Or his 100th? Or even his 1,000th? We might still be sitting in the dark. The 1% have a different relationship with failure. They don't fear it. They don't run from it. They embrace it. They understand that each failure brings them one step closer to success. Let me share a personal story with you. When I first started out as an entrepreneur, I failed miserably. I mean, it was bad. I lost money, I lost confidence. I even lost some friends who thought I was crazy for continuing to pursue my dreams. But you know what? That failure was the best thing that ever happened to me. It taught me valuable lessons about business that I couldn't have learned any other way. It showed me my weaknesses, which allowed me to work on improving them. And most importantly, it tested my commitment. Was I really serious about being successful, or was it just a passing fancy? I decided I was serious. I picked myself up, dusted myself off, and tried again, and again, and again. Each time I got a little better, a little smarter, a little closer to my goals. This is how the 1% think about failure. They don't see it as the end. They see it as feedback. They ask themselves, what can I learn from this? How can I use this experience to get better? Now, I'm not saying you should aim for failure. Of course not. But when failure happens, and it will happen if you're pushing yourself and trying new things, don't let it defeat you. Let it teach you. Moving on to the fifth key element of the 1% mindset, they understand the power of discipline and consistent action. Success is not about making one big, grand gesture. It's about doing the right things consistently, day after day, even when you don't feel like it. Especially when you don't feel like it. The 1% have incredible discipline. They don't wait for motivation or inspiration to strike. They don't rely on willpower. They build habits and systems that keep them moving forward, regardless of how they feel on any given day. Think about it this way: if you eat one healthy meal, does that make you healthy? Of course not. If you go to the gym once, does that get you in shape? No. It's the consistent, repeated action over time that leads to results. The same is true for success in any area of life. It's not about what you do once in a while. It's about what you do consistently. I once met a young man named David who wanted to become a successful writer. He had talent. He had ideas, but he wasn't making progress. When I asked him about his writing routine, he said, "Well, I write when I feel inspired." I told David, that's the difference between amateurs and professionals. Amateurs wait for inspiration. Professionals have discipline. We worked together to create a writing schedule for David. Every day, no matter what, he would write for 2 hours. Some days the words flowed easily. Other days it was a struggle. But David stuck to his schedule. After 6 months, David had completed his first novel. After a year, he had written 3. Today, David is a best-selling author with a loyal readership. What changed? He developed the discipline of the 1%. The 1% understand that success is not about one heroic effort. It's about showing up day after day and putting in the work. It's about doing what needs to be done, whether you feel like it or not. This brings us to the 6th key element of the 1% mindset. They focus on value creation. The most successful people in the world, the 1%, they're not just focused on making money. They're focused on creating value. They understand a fundamental truth: your income is directly proportional to the value you bring to the marketplace. Think about it. Why do some people earn more than others? Is it because they're luckier, smarter, more talented? Sometimes, perhaps. But more often than not, it's because they're providing more value. The 1% are always asking themselves, how can I add more value? How can I serve more people? How can I solve bigger problems? Let me give you an example. Think about someone like Steve Jobs. Did he become one of the richest men in the world by focusing on making money? No. He focused on creating products that would change the way we live and work. He focused on bringing value to millions of people around the world. Or consider someone like Oprah Winfrey. She didn't become successful by chasing fame or fortune. She became successful by focusing on how she could inspire and empower her audience. She created value, and the money followed. This is how the 1% think. They don't ask, how can I make more money? They ask, how can I create more value? I once worked with a business owner named Lisa. Lisa ran a small bakery, and she was struggling to make ends meet. When I asked her about her business strategy, she said, "I'm just trying to sell more cakes to make more money." I suggested a shift in perspective. Instead of focusing on selling more cakes, what if she focused on creating more value for her customers? We brainstormed ideas. Could she offer cake decorating classes? Could she create custom cakes for special events? Could she develop gluten-free or vegan options for customers with dietary restrictions? Lisa took this advice to heart. She started offering weekly cake decorating workshops, which became incredibly popular. She partnered with local event planners to create stunning custom cakes for weddings and corporate events. And her new line of gluten-free and vegan cakes opened up a whole new customer base. Within a year, Lisa's bakery was thriving. Her income had tripled. But more importantly, she was serving her community in new and meaningful ways. She was creating value, and her success followed naturally. This is the mindset of the 1%. They know that if you focus on creating value, the money will come. If you solve problems for people, if you make their lives better in some way, success will follow. Now let's move on to the seventh key element of the 1% mindset. They understand the importance of relationships and networking. You've probably heard the saying, it's not what you know, it's who you know. Well, the truth is, it's both. But the 1% understand that relationships can often be the catalyst that turns knowledge into opportunity. The most successful people in the world, they're master networkers. They understand that no one succeeds alone. They build strong, mutually beneficial relationships with a diverse group of people. But here's the key: they don't network with the mindset of what can this person do for me. Instead, they ask, how can I add value to this person's life? They understand that the best way to build a strong network is to be a giver, not just a taker. Let me tell you about a woman I know named Rachel. Rachel was a talented graphic designer, but she was struggling to find clients for her freelance business. She decided to change her approach to networking. Instead of going to events and handing out business cards, hoping someone would hire her, Rachel started looking for ways to help others. She offered free design advice to small business owners she met. She connected people in her network who she thought could benefit from knowing each other. She volunteered her skills for local nonprofit organizations. At first, it seemed like Rachel was giving away a lot without getting much in return. But over time, something interesting started to happen. The people she had helped started referring clients to her. The nonprofits she volunteered for started hiring her for paid projects. The connections she had made started opening doors to new opportunities. Within 2 years, Rachel had more work than she could handle. She had to hire a team to keep up with the demand. And it all started by shifting her focus from what can I get to what can I give. This is how the 1% think about networking. They understand that the strength of your network is not measured by how many people you know, but by how many people you've helped. They also understand the power of surrounding themselves with the right people. Jim Rohn, that's me, famously said, "You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. The 1% take this to heart." They deliberately seek out relationships with people who inspire them, challenge them, and push them to be better. They find mentors who have achieved what they want to achieve. They join mastermind groups with other ambitious, like-minded individuals. They distance themselves from negative influences and surround themselves with positive ones. This doesn't mean they cut off all relationships with people who aren't as ambitious or successful as they are. But they are intentional about who they allow to influence their thoughts and attitudes. The 8th key element of the 1% mindset is they have a long-term perspective. In our instant gratification culture, this is becoming increasingly rare. But the most successful people, the 1%, they think in terms of years and decades, not days and weeks. They understand that real, lasting success doesn't happen overnight. They're willing to delay gratification and make short-term sacrifices for long-term gains. Think about building wealth. The average person might get excited about a get-rich-quick scheme or a hot stock tip. But the 1%, they understand the power of compound interest. They're willing to consistently invest over many years, knowing that the real magic happens in the long run. Or consider building a business. The average entrepreneur might get discouraged if they're not making a profit in the first few months. But the 1% understand that it often takes years to build a truly successful business. They're willing to persist through the challenging early stages because they have their eyes on the long-term vision. I once worked with a young entrepreneur named Alex. Alex had a great idea for a tech startup, but after 6 months of hard work, he was ready to give up. "It's not working," he told me. "Maybe I should just go back to my old job." I asked Alex, "When you started this business, what was your vision? What did you hope to achieve in 5 years? In 10 years? Alex described a vision of a company that would revolutionize his industry, employ hundreds of people, and make a real difference in the world. "That's great," I said. "Now, did you really expect to achieve all that in 6 months?" Alex laughed. He realized he had lost sight of his long-term vision in the face of short-term challenges. We worked together to create a 5-year plan, breaking down his big vision into smaller, manageable goals. Today, 3 years later, Alex's company is thriving. It's not yet the industry giant he envisioned, but it's growing steadily and making real progress. And Alex? He's grateful he didn't give up when things got tough in those early months. This is how the 1% think. They have the patience and perspective to play the long game. They understand that most things worth achieving take time. Now, let's discuss the ninth key element of the 1% mindset. They embrace discomfort and challenge. The most successful people in the world, the 1%, they don't shy away from difficult tasks or situations. In fact, they actively seek them out. They understand that growth happens outside of your comfort zone. Think about it. If you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. If you want different results, you need to do different things. And often those different things are uncomfortable at first. The 1% understand this. They're not just willing to be uncomfortable, they see discomfort as a sign that they're on the right track. They know that if something feels easy, they're probably not growing. I once met a successful businessman named Robert who told me, "I make it a point to do something every day that scares me." When I asked him why, he said, "Because that's how I know I'm pushing my boundaries. That's how I know I'm growing." This mindset applies to all areas of life. In fitness, you need to push your muscles to the point of discomfort to get stronger. In learning, you need to tackle concepts that are just beyond your current understanding to expand your knowledge. In business, you need to take calculated risks and step out of your comfort zone to achieve new levels of success. Let me share a story about a woman named Linda. Linda was a mid-level manager at a large corporation. She was good at her job, but she had hit a plateau. She wasn't growing, and her career had stagnated. When Linda came to me for advice, I asked her, "When was the last time you did something at work that made you nervous?" Linda thought for a moment and realized it had been years since she had truly challenged herself. We worked together to identify areas where Linda could push herself. She volunteered to lead a high-profile project that was outside her usual responsibilities. She signed up for public speaking workshops to overcome her fear of presenting to large groups. She even had a difficult conversation with her boss about her career aspirations, something she had been avoiding for years. At first, Linda was uncomfortable. She felt out of her depth. But she persisted. And you know what happened? She thrived. The project she led was a huge success. Her improved communication skills made her a more effective leader. And that conversation with her boss, it led to new opportunities for growth within the company. Within a year, Linda had been promoted to a senior leadership position. But more importantly, she had rediscovered her passion for her work. She was growing again, learning new things, facing new challenges. This is how the 1% think. They don't avoid discomfort, they lean into it. They see challenges not as obstacles, but as opportunities for growth. Now let's move on to the 10th key element of the 1% mindset. They practice gratitude and maintain a positive attitude. You might be thinking, wait a minute, Jim, we're talking about success here. What does gratitude have to do with it? Well, let me tell you everything. The most successful people, the 1%, they don't just focus on what they want to achieve. They also appreciate what they already have. They understand that gratitude is not just a nice sentiment. It's a powerful force that can shape your entire outlook on life. When you're grateful, you focus on abundance rather than scarcity. You see opportunities rather than obstacles. You approach challenges with a positive attitude, which makes you more likely to overcome them. But here's the thing, gratitude isn't just about feeling thankful when good things happen. The 1% practice gratitude consistently, even especially when things are tough. I once knew a businessman named Frank who went through a very difficult period. His company was struggling, he was working long hours, and he was under tremendous stress. But every morning, without fail, Frank would write down 3 things he was grateful for. Some days it was big things like his health or his family. Other days, when things were really tough, it might be as simple as a good cup of coffee or a sunny day. But Frank kept at it day after day. Do you know what happened? Slowly but surely, Frank's attitude began to change. He started to see opportunities where before he had only seen problems. He approached challenges with a more positive mindset. And this shift in attitude began to reflect in his work. Frank's company turned around. Not overnight, but gradually. And Frank attributes a large part of this turnaround to his gratitude practice. He says it kept him going during the toughest times and helped him maintain the positive attitude necessary to find solutions. This is how the 1% think. They don't just practice gratitude when things are going well. They make it a daily habit regardless of circumstances. And it's not just about gratitude. The 1% maintain a positive attitude in all aspects of life. They understand that your attitude is a choice, and it's one of the few things you have complete control over. This doesn't mean they're unrealistic optimists who ignore problems. Far from it. They're clear-eyed about challenges and obstacles. But they approach these challenges with a mindset of how can we solve this, rather than this is impossible. Think about some of the most successful people you know. Chances are, they're not constantly complaining or focusing on the negative. They're probably people who face difficulties with resilience and optimism. This positive attitude is contagious. It inspires others. It attracts opportunities. And it gives you the mental strength to persist when things get tough. Now let's discuss the 11th key element of the 1% mindset. They take calculated risks. Many people think that the most successful individuals, the 1%, are big risk takers who gamble everything on a single throw of the dice. But that's not accurate. The 1% are not reckless risk takers. They're calculated risk takers. What's the difference? Calculated risks are informed decisions. They involve careful analysis, weighing of pros and cons, and consideration of potential outcomes. The 1% understand that without some level of risk, there can be no great reward. But they also know that not all risks are created equal. They do their homework. They gather information. They seek advice from experts. And then when they've done all they can to stack the odds in their favor, they take the leap. Let me tell you about a woman I know named Sarah. Sarah had a stable job in marketing, but she had always dreamed of starting her own business. Many people told her she was crazy to give up a secure paycheck to pursue an uncertain venture. But Sarah didn't just quit her job on a whim. She spent months researching her market, developing a business plan, and building up savings. She started her business on the side while still working her day job. She sought mentorship from successful entrepreneurs in her field. Only when she had validated her business idea and had enough savings to support herself for a year did Sarah finally take the plunge and quit her job to focus on her business full-time. Was it still a risk? Absolutely. But it was a calculated risk. Sarah had done everything in her power to increase her chances of success. Today, Sarah's business is thriving. She employs a team of 20 people and her company is growing every year. When I asked her about her decision to start the business, she said, "It was the biggest risk I've ever taken, but also the most carefully considered decision of my life." This is how the 1% think about risk. They don't shy away from it, but they don't embrace it recklessly either. They understand that the biggest risk in life is not taking any risks at all. They also understand that failure is always a possibility, even with the most carefully calculated risks. But they don't let the fear of failure paralyze them. Instead, they see potential failure as a cost of education. If a risk doesn't pay off, they don't beat themselves up about it. They ask, what can I learn from this? How can I do better next time? This mindset allows them to be bold in their decision-making without being reckless. It allows them to pursue big opportunities that others might shy away from. And over time, this willingness to take smart risks sets them apart from the crowd. Now, as we near the end of our discussion, let's talk about the 12th and final key element of the 1% mindset. They are adaptable and embrace change. In today's rapidly evolving world, the ability to adapt is not just an advantage, it's a necessity. The most successful people, the 1%, they don't just accept change, they embrace it. They see change not as a threat, but as an opportunity. Think about some of the most successful companies in the world. Companies like Amazon, Apple, or Google. What do they have in common? They're constantly evolving, constantly innovating. They don't rest on their laurels. They're always looking for the next big thing, even if it means disrupting their own business models. The same is true for successful individuals. They're always learning, always growing, always looking for ways to stay ahead of the curve. I once knew a man named Tom who had built a successful career as a print journalist, but as digital media began to take over, many of Tom's colleagues panicked. They saw the changing landscape as a threat to their livelihoods. But Tom, he saw an opportunity. Instead of resisting the change, he embraced it. He taught himself digital skills. He started a blog. He learned about social media marketing. He even taught himself basic coding. Was it easy? No. Tom had to work harder than he had in years. He had to admit that there were things he didn't know. He had to be willing to sometimes look foolish as he learned new skills. But you know what happened? While many of his colleagues struggled to find work in the shrinking print industry, Tom thrived in the new digital landscape. He ended up with a leadership position at a major online news outlet, earning more than he ever had as a print journalist. This is how the 1% think about change. They don't fear it. They don't resist it. They lean into it. They ask themselves, how can I use this change to my advantage? What new opportunities does this create? They also understand that adaptability isn't just about reacting to external changes. It's about being willing to change yourself, your habits, your beliefs, your strategies. The 1% are constantly evaluating themselves, asking, is this still serving me? Is there a better way? This willingness to change, to adapt, to evolve, it's what allows the 1% to stay at the top of their game year after year, decade after decade. Now, as we come to the end of our time together, I want you to take a moment to reflect on everything we've discussed. The mindset of the 1%, it's not something you're born with. It's something you develop. It's a set of habits, beliefs, and attitudes that you can cultivate over time. Let's recap the 12 key elements of the 1% mindset. They take 100% responsibility for their lives. They have a clear vision and set specific goals. They embrace continuous learning and self-improvement. They see failure as a stepping stone to success. They understand the power of discipline and consistent action. They focus on value creation. They understand the importance of relationships and networking. They have a long-term perspective. They embrace discomfort and challenge. They practice gratitude and maintain a positive attitude. They take calculated risks. They are adaptable and embrace change. As you leave here today, I want you to ask yourself, which of these elements do I already embody? Which ones do I need to work on? How can I start shifting my mindset to align more with these principles? Remember, success is not an accident. It's not a matter of luck. It's a matter of choice. Your choices every day, with every decision you make, you're either moving closer to success or further away from it. The good news is you have the power to change. You have the power to develop the mindset of the 1%. It won't happen overnight. It will take time, effort, and persistence. But if you commit to it, if you work on it consistently, you can transform your mind. And when you transform your mind, you transform your life. So I challenge you, start today. Choose one aspect of the 1% mindset and commit to working on it this week. Maybe it's taking more responsibility for your life. Maybe it's setting clearer goals. Maybe it's embracing discomfort or practicing gratitude. Whatever it is, start small, but start now. Because here's the truth, the 1% aren't special. They weren't born with some magical success gene. They're just people who think differently. And if they can do it, so can you. You have greatness within you. You have the potential to achieve amazing things. All you need is the right mindset, the mindset of the 1%. So go out there, think bigger, dream bigger, do bigger, embrace the mindset of the 1%. And watch as your life transforms in ways you never thought possible. Thank you for your time and attention. Remember, the future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams and have the mindset to turn those dreams into reality. Go out there and make it happen.